Hi, everyone. Welcome to Happy Hour. I am Becky, and in the co hosting position this evening is Heather. Hi, Heather.
Hello.
And we are super excited tonight to be joined by author Golden Angel. Should we call you Golden? Should we call you Angel? How would you like to be addressed this evening?
Everyone always asks that, and I don't really have a good answer. If any authors that are newer, that are fairly new in their career, or are aspiring authors, or who are watching this and considering a pen name, do not choose your pen name based on the assumption that no one will ever call you by it.
That
Okay.
makes a
Different
lot of
choices would
sense.
have been made.
Different choices would have been made. We'll just call you friend.
Golden Angel is fine. I'll answer to literally any variation of it because no one really knows what to do with it.
Well, it's kind of interesting because your pen name did not come about in the traditional sense of the word. You started writing under like a username, writing like
Yeah, on a
serial
website.
fiction.
Yeah, on a free website. I'm still up there too. A lot of my old erotica stories are still on there. Um, but yeah, I was writing it for Literotica originally, and readers from there wanted one of the serial stories. They asked me for it as a book, and so I figured I would make it easy for them to find me, and just kept my username as my author name, and figured it was fine because it wasn't like I was ever going to be a real author anyway. Um,
How'd that go for you
Oh,
there,
that
friend?
that worked out
backfired.
well.
Oh my.
Winning.
Winning.
So
Um,
yeah, just choose wisely.
choose wisely. So tonight we are here to celebrate the release of Legally Bound, which is book 5 in the Marquis Masters of the Marquis,
Masters of Marquis. Yeah.
Masters of Marquis. I do have to say that our sister podcast, Corset and Crown, are huge fans of your historical romances.
So
Lady Sadie,
sweet. I know they did an episode on A Season for Treason, and I was just thrilled. They were so sweet.
Lady Sadie has gone down the entire rabbit hole and read everything. And I recently read a book um, by Lila DuBois that involved something, and we can get to that in a little bit. And Lady Sadie quickly popped up and was like, Golden Angel has a lot of that in her book. And I'm like, hmm,
You do.
hmm, okay.
What was it
Everyone's
figging?
It was
making
figging.
It was
Yes,
figging.
it was figging.
you and I was like,
You immediately.
like a lot. Like, where did I read that? And then Becky goes, "Did you read a lot of the Golden Angels?" I'm like, yes, that's fair. Other,
You
It's one
know,
of my favorite things to write about for historicals. I don't know why. I should work it into some of my contemporaries. I don't think I've done it in any of the contemporaries.
well, funny story. I was reading Lila's newest book, Q is For, and
So good.
that cover is gorgeous. Like, I was sucked in
Hmm.
by that cover. And I
Yeah.
was reading it one night. I was in bed with my spouse, and I'm like, huh? And, because it was an out loud, like, huh?
Right.
And he's like, what? And I'm like, do you know what this is? And he's like, no, but why do you know what this is? I'm like, did you forget what I do? Did you forget? And then, I mean,
Oh,
there was this like whole butt plug thing in this book. And I'm telling him about it. And he's like, okay. Oh, okay. He has such a good humor about this stuff. He really, really does.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think it's so funny, like when men come to the realization, men who are not, but anyone really, not just men, anyone who is not a romance reader comes to the realization of the education that you can receive from romance books if you are so inclined.
Yes.
yeah,
So many opportunities for education.
your
Mhm.
vocabulary expands greatly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so tonight we're celebrating the release of Legally Bound. The rules of the night: you can ask all the questions in the chat. We will do our best to answer them. In the description of the video are the links to all the places to connect with Golden Angel. Sign up for her newsletter, which your newsletter is fabulous. You get like 3 free books within like the first
Yes.
week.
Yeah, you get I believe it's 2 of my historicals and 1 of my contemporaries. And one of the historicals you can purchase. It's called Undisciplined, and it's free on all platforms to purchase. But the other 2 you can only get through the newsletter. So
Yeah,
I'll be adding to them.
I joined the newsletter and I'm like, wait, I get free books. This is my kind of newsletter.
Right? I don't know. I mean, they aren't books that would sell, and like especially the historical is more of a short story than like a full on, it's not even, I wouldn't even call it a full on novella. But and the other one was actually on sale for a while. The contemporary On His Knees was on sale for a while and no one ever bought it, so I was like, we'll just make it free. Because I think people like didn't know what it was, because it was like it wasn't part of the series. It was connected to the series, but it wasn't part of the series, but it was about characters in the series. And it was like, yeah, it doesn't really fit in the series. So we're just gonna make it free. And everyone loves it when they read it, but
Yeah, I did. I really enjoyed it.
oh, thank you. Yeah, it was a fun story to write.
So let's kick things off in our traditional way and tell us, what are you drinking this evening?
I am currently drinking some Irish Manor Irish cream liqueur.
Nice.
Because I ran out of Bailey's, which is my normal. But we still have Irish cream, so it's fine.
It's fine. It's perfect for March. So,
Yeah. Yes. Oh, good point. I didn't think about that.
I'm a little like jealous of your peens, and all I have is gnomes. So I feel like now I'm gonna have to go get peens.
They're pretty great. I won't lie. They bring me much amusement. Uh
I laugh.
And especially I do a lot of TikTok videos, the just the tip, and it always amuses me when someone who's been watching me for a while will suddenly go, "Oh my God, there's stuffed peens behind you."
So what does it say about me? That was one of the first thing I noticed when you started doing your author just the tip.
That you're very observant. It says
Oh,
you're very observant.
Not my obsession with the peen. Not that at all.
Yeah. No, they crack me up. And yeah, I got the white one years ago and took him to conventions with me for a bit. And then this past year I saw that they were making brown ones now, and I was like, well, now that I can have like some diversity on my shelf.
I love it.
So yeah, I was like, now all I need is an Asian one.
Well, Heather a couple weeks ago sent me a pattern of a chapstick holder that's a peen, that's a crochet, and my girl child, who is 17, almost 18, like almost adult in age, is a crocheter, like huge crocheter. And Heather's like, you think the girl child, so we call her the girl child, could make these for us? And I said, well, yeah, I'm sure she can. I asked her. She's like, yes. We got the pattern. Then I took her to the Joann Fabrics to buy the yarn, and I bought a variety of flesh tones, like a variety. And the girl at the register, trying to have a conversation with my incredibly awkward 17-year-old, like incredibly awkward, she's like, so what are you making?
At Joann's, they're required to ask that. That's part of their customer service. They are actually required to ask that.
She was like, bees, chunky bees. Because she made like the little pink bee that's on my shelf back there.
Right.
She's like, chunky bees. Like that was, and I'm like, in flesh tone.
For my mom's book club is what she said.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
I'm like, Anyway, the things I do to that child, but she's used to it at this point. Heather, what are you drinking this evening?
Topo Chico and wine. I'm kind of boring.
Yum. I'm hoping for some bourbon and honey here. The girl child brought home a head cold. So my children, they like do college and are but we mostly like do homeschool for other
Right.
reasons, not for any crazy reasons. Was like a purpose to it.
Yeah.
So we
No.
don't socialize a lot with like other people and children, but the girl child was
Mm-hmm.
working. She's doing a theater production with student directing and stage managing a production at the local performing arts center, and she brought home a head cold.
Lovely.
And I'm like, I love
It's the
children.
worst.
They're fantastic.
I have
Um,
a 4-year-old, so I feel ya.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
They're always sick. And then they put everything in their mouth and you're like, just the world is so
Everything.
dirty.
Everything. Yeah, she had strep and an ear infection this week.
Ugh.
So double the antibiotics.
I often like to tell the children, please don't lick hobos. That's what we tell them when they come home with snotty stuff. I'll be like, could you please just stop licking hobos? They're
Yeah.
like, really?
I mean, she put, yeah, just everything. And food, drop it on the floor immediately in the mouth. And I'm like, we're trying to teach her, I'm like, it's fine with some things, but not everything.
Not
The 10
everything.
second rule doesn't apply to everything.
Yeah. Mac and cheese should not go in your mouth after it falls on the floor.
We have dogs, so that was never an issue in this house because the dogs pretty
Yeah.
much ate it quickly.
Yeah.
So
That does help.
let's get to know Golden
Books.
Angel a little bit before we get talking. We will not be spoiling Legally Bound, but we do want to, talk a little bit about the book because there's some really cool stuff that happens in that story. And we want you all to go out and read it. I know that I am a big fan of the Dungeon Daddies series that you wrote. I love those guys.
Yeah.
Heather's like, yes, yes.
I really like them too.
So we might touch a little bit on that, but really we're here to celebrate Legally Bound. But so let's get to know you a little bit. Why romance? What was your draw into the genre? And then you do both romance and a little bit more erotica, but it's a good blend. I always feel like we get happily ever afters with you though.
Usually there's a few for my erotica pen name. There are a few stories where it's like it's not like a traditional like everyone well, there's a few that are pretty dark, but there's also just some where it's like it's not a romance. Like there's no romance in it. There's just lots of hot sex and then they go their separate ways and everybody's happy. For Golden Angel, you always get a happily ever after. That's a Golden Angel guarantee. Sinistriange does not make that guarantee, but I do still write mostly romance as Sinistriange. Um, but yeah, I started out on the Literotica website, and I was doing that because I got to college and had access to computer and the internet without my parents looking over my shoulder for the first time. The family when I was growing up, it was the one family computer that was in their office. So it's not like my brother and I could do anything, um, go look at anything, although he tried. Um,
Boys always do.
but yeah, the boys always do. But yeah, I got to college and went and looked at porn and decided it was awful and I couldn't understand. It turns out I'm just not a visual person. But Literotica, along with the porn on their website, also had stories. And I was like, well, let me check these out. And I really liked reading the stories. And I also, before that, I didn't know what kink was or BDSM or anything like that. So those stories were also my introduction to what kink and BDSM was. And it was like something clicking in my brain of like, oh, yes. um, this is what I'm interested in, and it's a thing. Um, and so I read through, it took me about 3 years, but I'm a speed reader. And I read through basically every story in the categories that I was interested in on the website. And then stories come out daily, but they weren't always exactly what I wanted to read. And I'd always enjoyed writing. So I went, let me see if I can do this. Um, and I think romance, I've just always been drawn to, um, mostly for the happily ever after. My favorite, I didn't used to read romance. Like as a kid, I read mysteries and horror and everything like that. But my favorites always still had a romance in them. My favorite R.L. Stein books were the oh God, it was a trilogy, and it was like the origins of Fear Street, and there's romance in that. And it was terrifying, but I loved the romance in it. That was what really stuck out to me. And then, I read a lot of sci-fi and fantasy, but again, my favorites always had some kind of romance in it. Um, and it wasn't until I was older that I really got into, out of college. In college, I was still reading a lot of fantasy and sci-fi, but um, that I finally kind of stumbled. What happened was I started looking for more BDSM. I wasn't looking specifically for romance. I was looking for more BDSM content, and stumbled across Lexi Blake, Sherry Sinclair, Calypso Masters, and got quite an education.
I bet. Yeah.
Even more, yeah, even more than the website had given me in some ways. And it was, I like the happy ending. I need the happy ending. I'm not someone who really enjoys watching sad things, or things that give me, like, I have anxiety diagnosed. I don't need more. Um, so that guaranteed happily ever after means a lot to me. That I don't have to like worry that throughout the book that something terrible is going to happen to one of the main characters and leave me upset and weeping and unfulfilled.
Well, and I don't even mind a third act breakup because I know that there's going to be the grand gesture. Something is going to happen that's going to bring
Right.
them back
It's
together.
going to be okay in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even now, like, I have to be in the right mood to read really angsty romance, just because like getting through the angst can be hard for me. Um, but it does help, like, as long as I'm in the right mood, I can read it because I do know that the end is coming. And that it's gonna be okay.
It's gonna be okay.
So yeah, so that's just what I ended up, I ended up writing it because I was on a sex website, an erotica website, and so that kind of lended itself to giving characters happy endings. I couldn't even It's so funny. I kept writing, I wanted to write really dark stuff and these awful villains, and by the end of it they kept redeeming themselves, and I was getting so mad at myself.
Like, why can't you just be a bad guy?
Right? And then so what I ended up coming up with was I wrote this whole serial, where I made the couple, the like main hero and heroine couple, they were both taken captive by like this really bad villain, so that I could just have a bad villain. He didn't need to be redeemed because I had the couple, they were the captives, so everything was like I just had to work out their relationship. He could be as bad as I wanted him to be, and the readers freaking fell in love with him. He's everybody's
Of course
favorite.
they did.
He's everybody's favorite. So yeah, I'm going to be taking that one, and I'm working on turning it into an Omegaverse series for Sinistrange, because I think that particular world that I created there will lend itself well to being turned into an Omegaverse.
I've only read like one or two Omegaverse books. I find them fascinating. I also feel like as I read them, there's a quandary of am I reading it because I can't believe I'm reading it, or am I reading it because I like it? But I feel the same way about the Hugh Cow nursing books.
Yep. Well, yep, that's how everybody feels about the Hugh Cow.
Yes. I'm like, am I reading this? Am I reading this because, like, I mean, they're always a good story, but why, like, I can't not read them. I have to read them.
I'll try, like, trust me, writing it, I'm sitting there just going, what am I doing?
I'm good. I'm glad I'm not alone.
Why did I need to write this?
I sit there reading it, and I'm like, what am I doing? I like question, and then I'm like, whatever. Somebody else will read it too.
Well, you had quite the upsurge in page reads on it recently, and you're like, you dirty birds, I know what you're reading.
Like, seriously, all I have to do is mention it on TikTok and I can see the page reach just go boop. Just like book talk, man, it's filthy. Y'all are filthy.
Also, you can turn off on your Goodreads. So my neighbors, the neighbor guys in my neighborhood, all love to get that email from Goodreads from me about what I'm reading. They're like, "You're a dirty bird," and I'm like, "Yeah, I am," and I don't even care. And I'm like, I'm going to turn that feature off. And they're like, don't you dare. It brings me so much joy. I look forward to that email every month. So don't do that. And I'm like, then stop making fun of me. They're like,
yep.
Gold. They're like, but we would like a list, because then they travel for work and then they're on their Kindles and nobody knows what you're reading.
Yeah. No, it's great.
Yeah.
Well, I had some plugin that it was putting what I was currently reading in the bottom of my emails. I did turn that off. I did turn that off because, you know, do I want to email my child's like, you know, theater director or ukulele coach?
Well, I have 2 different emails.
Yes, like, well, my Goodreads is attached to my Amazon account, you know, to make it for ease of that. So it's not my bookcase and coffee that is just buzzing and book blog and that kind of world. It's like in my...
No, that makes sense.
So it's like, I turned that feature off. You did not need to see my emails. So do you have a favorite trope to read or to write?
Definitely Grumpy Sunshine, because that's also my life.
Are you married to a grumpy man?
One. I am married. So grumpy.
Same.
If you've read the Stronghold Doms, the Sassy Submissive, Adam and Angel, it's not the story of how we got together, but their personalities and the way that Adam and Angel act with each other is 100% my husband and me. Like, completely, I just ripped off our own for that one. I'm
gonna have to grab that one because I'm married to like the stoic guy.
Yes.
Who just... Yeah. But I know he's also, I think you said your husband's an IT guy too, right?
I use him for IT. He does a lot of stuff. Like, he's incredibly smart. And so anytime there's like something, especially with IT or things that need to be done around the house, he's the husband who will be like, oh, something's wrong with the dishwasher, I'll figure it out, and then actually figures it out and fixes it. Like, it's crazy. Yeah. Like, there's follow through.
See, I'm married to one of those guys too that's like incredibly smart, but he is actually a real life IT guy. And,
oh my gosh.
And I was like, I laughed when you said, you know, I sell stuff on my website, but I didn't set it up. My IT guy did. And we would not have a podcast. We would not be doing what we're doing right now if it wasn't for the IT guy. I say, I have an idea. Like, don't you think this would be a great idea? And he's like, no. And then I'm like, but it would be. It'd be a great idea. And he's like, no. And then he does it.
Your husband is on the cover of one of your books too, right?
He is. I put him on the cover of Logan, which he's still a little salty about, because that's the first book in the Dad Bod Dom series.
That's a great series though, and I love the Dungeon and Dragon like dice.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the so that book is connected to the Dungeons and Dom series, but it's a different the characters, the main character from the first Dungeons and Doms book, Gavin, was first introduced in Logan. And then I got the cover for Dungeon Master, and I was like, you gotta write this like immediately. But I could already tell when I was writing Logan that when I introduced Gavin, he was gonna need his own book.
He's gonna need...
which as often happens with me.
Susie asked, what trope is there a trope you would never write? Is there a trope you don't like?
I hate Secret Baby. I mostly hate Secret Baby. I've seen it done well. But a lot of the time I just get like really, really angry on behalf of the hero. It's like, just has no idea. And I'm like, you need to at least, unless like they're abusive, like if they're not abusive, they need to be told. Like, And then acting, and then it's, especially because I feel like a lot of the time the heroine like gets upset when they step up to the plate, and that makes me angry all over again. So that's one of my least favorite.
No, that's fair. And
uh
I only recently kind of figured out. I used to say I love Secret Baby and it's one of my favorite tropes. It isn't Secret Baby that I love. I like Baby on the Doorstep. Like
oh,
where
that's a good one.
where
See,
the
and
baby
joy.
what?
And that one I enjoy.
Yeah. So I like
Um
that one. I because I'm not a huge Second Chance fan. Um
mm. Now see, I do love Second Chance. She
it
can't have hidden his child from him.
right. You can have a second chance as long as you don't hide any children. No children
Yeah.
hidden.
I don't like Second Chance, and I'm also not a huge like bully romance person. So
Yeah.
sometimes enemies to
So
lovers, it's hard.
I love enemies to lovers. I love enemies to lovers. But yeah, I haven't read much bully romance, and I used to say never, that I would never read bully romance, and then I accidentally read one that was so fucking good. um Eva Chase's, I think it's called Villains Academy or something like that. I didn't realize what it was. I thought it was just a reverse harem, and it was so good. And I was like, okay, I can read bully romances like this. Very specifically, where she makes them grovel and make it up to her before they ever get some. This I can read.
Yeah, I read a
Um,
few Chantel Tesser ones, and she has
Mm-hmm.
big anti-heroes and they're bullies. I mean, they're not good guys, but the way she
Yeah.
writes them, yeah. It's kind of the same quandary I have at times with Mafia, which I'm like,
Yeah.
do I love you? Do I not love you? Oftentimes I end up loving them. You know,
Oh man.
I like
Yeah.
I like an asshole. Like honestly.
I do too. I'm married to one, so yeah.
Same.
I
Um
just remember, yes, my grump, which is probably why it's my favorite and probably why I like the enemies to lovers and stuff. Like we're and opposites attract is another big one for me because again, it's what I live. Um, but he at one point, I remember one of our friends, like we were getting on his nerves as we do, and one of my friends was like, he said something, and my friend was like, "Oh, you love us," and he goes, "No, I tolerate you. There's a difference." And they're like, "What about Angel? You love her?" And he goes, "Tolerate her the most."
I have the highest level of
Such an
tolerance for her.
just it was just such an accurate depiction of how our relationship works. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I can
Yeah, I was like,
relate.
"Yeah, no, that's us."
Um
yeah,
Susie
I can relate
said
too.
she loves your books with Lee Savino.
Oh, yeah, the Centurions.
So you are the reason that Susie got back into historical romance.
You. Yeah,
That's
I love it. I love it when I can get people back into something or have them try something they haven't tried before, which is probably part of why I write in so many different subgenres of romance. But yeah, Lee and I, we've only written 3 books. We had like 17, we had 17 books plotted out at some point, and I'm sure we'll get around to them eventually. But I will say, co-writing is amazing. I don't recommend doing it with someone who has a kid that's the same age as yours. Because I've co-written with a couple other people, and I have co-written with someone else who had kids, but her kids are teenagers. Lee and I, our daughters are very close in age. And so going through both of us, like she was going through the newborn phase when I was at the end of my pregnancy, and then we both were going through early baby phases, like together and trying to write and trying to find time and trying to find energy. And then now we both have toddler, like 4-year-olds, and we had to just throw in the towel and say we will come back to this in the future because it our schedules just and our energy levels just you need to,
littles.
especially with the younger kids, you need someone who can balance out the fact that you have a young child, not someone else who is also on the struggle bus.
But
Right.
you also like your body, your brain doesn't bounce back the way that it did. Like it takes a while.
Yeah, I mean, pregnancy brain was terrible. I don't. I barely remember writing. Barely remember it. I do remember the third book because my daughter was a little bit older by then, but it was hard. And we love the books and we love working together. But one day in the future, we still talk about what we want to do with the series. One day.
It'll come back. It happened. You know, for years I couldn't do anything. My kids were 2 years apart, exactly 2 years apart. And I tell new parents all the time, like 3 and 5 was good. 4 and 6, it started to get easier. But once we started hitting 5 and 7, like it went fast and things were, but you're so engrossed in their lives that you don't have time for anything else. And then they hit about like 15, 16 and they're just done with you.
Don't want anything to do with you.
My girl child still likes me, but my boy child is 19 and he is like, can I just have money? What's for dinner? That's like the best question in this house. What are you cooking tonight? Food. We're making food.
Yeah. What are you cooking tonight? That's the real question.
Nobody wants that.
No.
Nobody wants that. So one of the things I love about reading your books is, for the most part, even within a series, your books stand on their own. Yeah. Like you can kind of pick and choose, you know, what books work for you and stuff like that. So what's the importance for you when writing a series that the books stand alone?
I think it's, for me, it's the fact that I have picked up series before where I grabbed a book in the middle and had no idea what was going on, didn't realize I'd grabbed a book in the middle, had no idea what was going on, and dropped it. And then later came across the first in the series, read it, loved it, and would realize that, oh, I have tried this series before. It's just that I tried to start in the middle and it didn't work. And I could have read it so much earlier if I had known. And I've also read series, like one of my favorite series, it's by Lois McMaster Bujold. It's the Miles Vorkosigan series. It's sci-fi. There is romance. And I accidentally, this was one where I picked up the first book, couldn't get into it. Accidentally picked up a book in the middle, loved it. It was completely standalone, so easy to read, read through from that point through the rest of the series, and then went back to the beginning and read from there. And honestly, I think that's the only way I could have read that series. I'm not sure I would have read the earlier books if I hadn't started in the middle. And it was just such an intriguing experience, that, especially because I write each of my books, for the most part, has very different personalities, different tropes, different kinks, different things that they enjoy doing. And if someone really wants to, like Legally Bound is a femdom romance. And if someone really wants to read just a femdom romance and they don't want to read the others, I don't want them to have to read the first 4 books in the series. I want them to be able to just pick it up and enjoy their femdom romance. And if they decide they want to read about the other characters, great. But if they don't, they were able to read the book that they really wanted to read. And that's the biggest thing for me is making sure that people don't feel like they are obligated to read a whole series just to read one book, because that's the book that they really want to read.
Yeah, I'm a notorious, we call it macheting a series. I am the worst at just picking up random books. Like I picked up a book and it was like book 9 in an 11 book series. And oh my goodness. Some of the people in our community are like, what's wrong with you? And I always tell them I'm doing community service because the author billed it as a standalone. And you know, does it stand alone? I'm also a fool because I do not read blurbs when going into a book. So like I picked up a book recently, like by Bella J, and I didn't know it was a trilogy. And it was, book 1 was bonkers, but it was kind of, again, that I cannot put this down. I don't even know if I like this hero. I liked the heroine. But I have to, I then ended up rage reading book 2 and 3. Like,
that.
But it's my fault because I didn't read a blurb.
Yeah.
So I think though this one, if you read it, so I started this series and I didn't realize I like missed a couple. But it definitely makes you want to go back and because like you do a really great job of like sprinkling in the past characters and then giving us enough where you would allow readers to kind of check in with them again, but then also
Right.
cause readers to be like, I want to know more about them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that's another one of my favorite things, like as a reader, like that's something I love. And so I think that that's just translated into what I write because it's something I love to read, where you get like, and I love sprinkling in the Easter eggs. I love it when readers have told me that they found them. Um, I love, I don't know, it's maybe like a little sadistic. I love setting up the future stories. That's also just my like, and I think also because it is hard for me to write insta love. That's not really my thing. I like to read it. I struggle. It's hard for me to write, and so for a lot of my care, especially in like contemporary romance, where it's, to me, insta love just doesn't always feel super realistic. And I have kind of realized, I actually realized recently, I'm pretty sure I'm demisexual. And I was like, oh, this actually explains why I struggle with my characters having an instant connection, because I struggle with having an instant romantic and sexual connection. That's just not who I am. And so for a lot of my series, I like to sprinkle in what happened before because I love seeing the relationship develop even after that happily ever after, because a lot of my happily ever afters don't end in marriage. Because I'm like, no, you're not there in your relationship yet. Just said I love you, so you have to wait to get married. um but then I get to like send the character that we get to see them get engaged, and we get to see them get married through the eyes of the other characters later, which I love doing too. And then I get to kind of sprinkle in that's why I like working with big groups of friends and families, because then you get to sprinkle in like what's going on in some of these relationships. And I keep track. Like I have the last book in the Masters of Marquis series, I started the arc for those characters back in the Stronghold Dom series. Like you can go back and read hardcore vanilla, and that's where their relationship arc begins. And we get little glimpses of it all the way through the Masters of Marquis because they've got a lot to work out, and I need them to go through some stuff before I can get to their book. And
But
for
like,
me, that's, yeah.
I feel like Freddie, everyone was like was just waiting for like
Oh
the
yeah.
right person for him to
Yes.
come along, and then everyone
And that
rallied.
was terrifying. He was never intended to get a book. He was never intended to get a book.
Which book is his?
Um,
This one,
the
Freddie.
Legally
Oh,
Bound,
Freddie.
the one that
Oh.
just came out. Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so
So
sorry. I knew
he
that.
was
I'm
never
like,
intended
wait.
to have a book. I introduced him, I loved him, and I figured we will give him, everyone will see him pair up with the dominatrix eventually, and we'll watch that relationship through the eyes of the other characters, because I don't think I can write a femdom book. And then I wrote Olivia's story and really enjoyed writing that femdom book. And then people were still asking for Freddie's book at that point, and I was like, I think I might be able to write this, maybe. But at that point, by the time, I mean, it was a little terrifying writing his story because he has been a fan favorite for so long. Everybody loves him. And I'm just like, so like the pressure to like give him a story that everyone would also be happy with, especially when he is not a dom, was just like, oh my God.
I think it was perfect. It was
Thank you.
perfect. And you don't make him like I don't know how to say this. Like he is a very strong character. He is submissive only in one place in his life.
Yeah, and he's probably one of my most secure characters too. Like he's very secure in who he is and
But I
what he
wouldn't
wants.
but I wouldn't say he was a beta though. I mean, he's not, even though he was submissive, he didn't have what I would say beta characteristics. I really liked his character, and I will tell you, I'm very mean to beta heroes. Like really mean to them.
He was set up to kind of, I mean, he was set up to be a metrosexual beta male character from the very beginning, mostly because I get kind of mad sometimes at how beta male characters are portrayed.
That's
Um,
fair.
a lot of I'll be honest with you, a lot of what I write is I'll start to see patterns in tropes and patterns in the way certain characters are presented and certain characters are stereotyped, and it's like the type of character, like the beta males and the metrosexuals, and they're always this specific type of character, and it's usually not a flattering presentation.
No.
They're kind
And
of doormats.
yeah, and it starts to make me, I mean, it's a little bit toxic masculinity, it's a little bit societal expectations, it's a little bit reader expectations, but it always starts to feel kind of like a challenge that's being put out into the universe of write this character, but make them likable, make them the hero or the heroine. And that's, I usually look for the patterns and then what is not happening in that pattern. So when you see the beta males and the metrosexuals, um, what's the pattern? They're always like the whiny male friend. They're always the ex love interest. Sometimes they're abusive. A lot of the time they're not very flattering things. And then you have Freddie with his like gelled blonde hair and his pink suits. And he went at the club, sometimes he wears leather, sometimes he wears fishnet, and he's just so secure in who he is. He's bisexual, he submits, but he's likable and he's fun and he's a good friend and a good sub and a good character, and everybody loved him, and that made me really happy because that's what I like to do. um and I'm in the next book in the series too, I'm kind of doing it again because I get mad sometimes that, like, I went on a little bit of a rant on Facebook. I don't normally do that, but I went on a little bit of a rant on Facebook about how women characters who spend time on their hair and makeup and who have fake breasts, that's basically shorthand for she's a shitty, shallow person in romance. She is always set up to be the villain. If that's all you have to say is that she's got big hair, her hair's done, she's wearing a lot of makeup, and she has fake boobs, and we all know that we're supposed to hate
Short
her.
dresses. She always has to wear overly
Yeah,
short
tight
dresses.
clothes. So that's Morgan, and she's my next heroine, and I'm super excited about it.
This
Yeah.
trope is my favorite kind. I love fake dating.
I'm so excited. It's the first time I've done fake dating. I'm so excited.
Oh,
How it's a fake date, like, because like I imagine it would be hard to do like fake dating in a like sex club. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, how do you get that in there? But you worked it out real well.
He's got to go. It's only fake there. Like the whole club knows what's going on, but then I'm just so excited about it because everyone at the club knows, and they're like, okay, but this is fake, so hands off to him. No one's telling her that. She doesn't know. And her whole reason for going is that she's tired of everyone telling her what to do. So it's going to be explosions everywhere. And then they have to come home and pretend nothing happened because everyone told him hands off.
hands off.
And I'm just like, I'm so fucking excited.
So, and you're
Level.
making us wait until October 24th for this?
Yes. Yeah. So unfortunately, I mean, I am a fast writer, sort of. I can type very, very quickly. It takes me the Masters of Marquis and like my main historical series, like Deception and Discipline and stuff. They take me about a month and a half to 2 months to write, usually about two. which is fast because they're long books.
Mhm.
However, what I can't do is write 2 books in the same series in a row, and I don't know why I can't do it. Um, I've tried in the past, and about halfway through the second book in a row, I just writer's block for days. And I think what ends up happening, and this is the reason I alternate series, normally I have 2 contemporary and 2 historical main releases, and then I've got little projects in between. And I write a contemporary, a contemporary, historical, and then I also write the other little projects. And it's because I need time for the story to gel in my head. Because the other thing about the way that I write is that I'm sort of a plotter, but not really. I usually have an outline. I usually have an idea for the story. But things happen during the writing of the book that changes what's going to happen in the next book. My characters are very real to me. And they do not always do what I want them to do. And so a lot of the time, once this new setup has happened in the book, like originally, Lexi was going to be trying to set Morgan and Master Assad up.
Mm.
She was encouraging and enthusiastic. And then when I was writing it, it turned out that nope, she was going to tell them, Master Assad, that he has to keep his hands off Morgan while they're like on their trip. Um, and so that changes a lot about what's going to happen in the next book compared to what I had been thinking was going to happen. And so now I need time to kind of let that percolate and simmer and figure out the different things that are going to happen. And so in the meantime, I write other books. But yeah, I need time. I need a couple months to let it work itself out, and then a couple months to write it, and then a month for the editor. And yeah, so yeah,
Okay.
it unfortunately, like, I'm a fast writer, but it takes that long for me to write a book. It's like I'm a fast writer, but a slow writer too.
That makes sense. What so Susie wants to know who your one-click author is.
Um, so I have several. Top of the list, Lexi Blake, always. Right up there with her, Erin Nicholas. Small town steamy romance. She's a lot like me, but no, like with low angst, big groups of family and friends. Um, just no kink, and she's hilarious. Her books are hilarious. So she's one of them. Stephanie Lawrence for historical, always one click immediately.
Stephanie Lawrence, I think,
Um,
is one of the most underrated historical romance authors that's been around for a long time. You know,
yes,
I just,
Devil's Bride is one of my all-time favorite
that
historical
scene in
romances.
the woodcutter's cottage,
Yes.
so freaking
No, I just love
spicy.
it when he's like shirtless on the horse with her after that, like riding through the countryside and just like whatever.
Yeah, like it's okay. He didn't have a shirt on. He doesn't know who this woman
Yeah.
is, but it's all
Bare
great.
chested Duke riding through the countryside with my new bride that I basically just kidnapped. I'm like, and then the hero Helena, she's
Yeah.
so strong. She's such an amazing character. So yeah, and then top of the list though. I mean, Lexi Blake for BDSM romance is the top of the list, but ultimate top of the list, like pee my pants whenever she said they are putting a new book out, Ilana Andrews. Um,
Mm.
the Hidden Legacy series. Like, I didn't think anyone was ever going to knock Jericho Barons out of his #1 spot of book boyfriend for me. And then fucking Mad Rogan came along, and I am just like, talk about enemies to lovers done well. Like, oh my God, the Hidden Legacy series. First book is Burn for Me. Burn for You, Burn for Me, what something. But yeah, Ilana Andrews and the Kate Daniels series, so good. Like, mind-blowingly good. The world building is phenomenal. And the fact that she took a character that I loathed, that he killed characters that I loved, and she made me like him in the end.
I think that's a
Like, I
quality
cannot wait
author.
for his next book.
I think it's a
Oh my
quality author that can
God.
take a character that I have very quickly put into the villain category and
Yes.
then love them. And,
That
you know,
was a better redemption arc than Jaime Lannister, which
yeah,
again, I did not think could be beaten.
yeah.
And then Alana Andrews came along and did it. And I mean, those all I've read everything they've ever written. The Kate Daniels and the Hidden Legacies are my favorite, which of course means that Hugh and the new ones about Julie and Derek are also, I consider them all part of that world. But I mean, Hidden Legacies though, just Mad Rogan. Like if you don't read anything else by her,
Just
Hidden
read that.
Legacies.
I think she's at
Um,
Readers on the River with J.R. Ward next in September.
would
Um,
pee my pants.
I think
I would,
that's, I
yeah.
think she's one of
It's
the names on the
authors
list.
that it's just like, I mean, I adore Lexi Blake. I'm terrified to ever meet her, even though like I know she seems to like me, which is amazing, but like I'm also still terrified to ever meet her.
She's
Uh,
super nice. We got to interview her. She is the nicest. She came to one of our book clubs and was the sweetest, like
Very
kindest.
sweet.
Um,
I idolize her. Like that she is who I want to be when I grow up. And she was doing a Q&A in her Facebook group and someone asked her, "How do you feel about fanfic?" And would you ever be okay with anyone writing it? And she's like, "Oh my God, yes." She's like, "I would love a fanfic of Adam and Ian specifically." I dropped everything that I was doing. I pounded out a 4,000 word fanfic in like 4 hours. And just like sent it to her. I was like, "Hi, I just saw that you said you wanted this in your Q&A today. So I just wrote it and like I hope you like it. Thank you. Bye." She let me put it up in her group and in my Facebook group. So it is in there
so
in both of
fun.
those groups. It's Ian
But
and Adam fanfic
I will tell
for
you, there
Lexi
are a
Blake.
lot of authors that love you because Heather and I last week, was it last week or the week
Yeah.
before? Was it last week?
Who? What?
We interviewed Carrie and Ryan, and
Oh
we were
yeah.
like, we'll be back next week with Golden Angel. And she's like, tell her I said hi. I love her. She's the best. And I'm like, okay.
So sweet. Oh my God. I love her books. I mean, we've like it's like weird because on Facebook it's like you talk to people, but you don't know, you aren't like
He
talking to
is
them.
so great.
Yeah.
And
Well, I'll have to go watch that one now. I'm behind, but I'll have to go watch that one. I'll
She
bump that one up on my
is,
list.
Carrie is just, again, kind of like you, down to earth, just
Mhm.
really real about her books and her characters and what she likes. And um, I just, we've been really
And
lucky.
her writing is fantastic.
We've been really lucky.
I've read a lot of her books.
Yeah.
she
I have not read all of them, I'll admit, but I've read a lot of them.
she has been writing for 12 years. I'm just gonna say this, which I feel like isn't a long time. I have raised a child in that amount of time. However, she has like 100 and some books. I'm like, do you sleep? She actually messaged me on Instagram. She was like, oh, I get up at 4:30. 4:30 in the morning. I'm like, girl, no, you need sleep.
No, thank you.
Go to
I
sleep.
sleep until my toddler wakes me up.
And keep with that. So let's talk a little bit about the Masters of the Marquis series. What is the inspiration for this series?
So that's here. It's a spin-off of my Stronghold Dom series, which, as true to my standalone heart, you do not have to read the Stronghold Doms before reading the Masters of Marquis. But as often happens with me, I introduced some side characters that I really, really loved. But the Stronghold Dom series was concentrated specifically on this one group of friends. And I introduced these side characters who were quickly becoming another group of friends. And I was like, well, but I want to write their stories now. Because they're really interesting. I made these really interesting side characters, and now I would like to explore things with them. And in my head, I was like pairing them off and hooking them up, which, by the way, none of them ended up with the character that they were supposed to be with. Like one couple will, but the other three, which if you've read any of the other books, like I'll tell you right now, Mitch was supposed to be with Morgan, who's in the next book. Mitch ended up with Dami, who was supposed to be with Kincaid, Ray and Brian, and then Zach and Samantha. And instead, Kincaid decided he was not that interested in Dami, which was fine because Dami wasn't interested in him at all. And I was like, excuse me. He decided he was interested in Zach. And I was like, well, coming. Um, and then Morgan and Mitch were not really feeling it. And then Mitch decided he wanted Dami, and Dami didn't seem as she didn't immediately say no to that the way that she did with Kincaid. And I was like, all right, well, there we go. And then Brian and Ray are just circling around each other, which they have been this whole time. But yeah, and I kind of realized it would give me the chance to write a lot of the other side characters too that I had fallen in love with, like Q, who was another he's in Switchplay, which is the book before Legally Bound, and he's another character, another fan favorite from the first book in that series that people kept asking me for a book for him, and then I got to writing one for Freddie. And Iris, a lot of people asked me for Iris. She's Master Andrew's little sister, so she first shows up in Bound to the Past. She's a total brat. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I would like to write. So it was just kind of like all these side characters that were so interesting to me that kind of took on a life of their own. And I was like, well, you guys all get your own series now. Yeah.
So the Dungeons and Dumbs I've read that whole series. It's great. I love that they're older. I think there's so many books around. I mean, like, old people, I don't want to say old people, but they're like my age, which is like, we're in our 40s.
Romance and kink does not have an age limit.
Well,
let me tell you, like,
we're not dead. We
right. And like in the kink community, there's a lot of people who are older and have been doing this for decades and passing down their knowledge and teaching courses and still active. And yeah, I had a lot of people requesting older characters from me, which when I was in my 20s, I was like, I don't know if I can write that, just because like I don't know how well I can like I tend to write most of my characters tend to be younger than me because I've been through those stages of my life. I know them intimately. But now in my late 30s, I'm like, okay, I'll just, I'll write characters in their 50s and I'll just kind of look at how I'm feeling and extrapolate from that, which I've had a few readers be like, why are all of your characters in their 50s act like they're so much older? They've got this problem and this, like their knees and I'm like, okay, but that's because that's what I'm dealing with, and I just tried to make them a little bit older than me. So maybe you're just really lucky in your very healthy, able body, okay?
Right, because at 46, my knees hurt, and there are things I cannot do anymore.
If I'm kneeling on the ground for 5 minutes, you'd better believe I need help sitting up.
If I'm kneeling on the ground for 5 minutes, call for help because no one else is getting on the ground.
But in that first is so in the Dungeon Master, which he's Mitch's dad, right?
Yes. Right? Okay. Which was also not originally planned. I got about halfway through writing Bondage Buddies. I knew I was writing Dungeon Master next. Mitch already had some issues with his parents. There was like family. He had divorced parents, family strife. And then I just happened to, I was getting the covers done for both of these books because they were releasing like May and June, back-to-back months. And I'm looking at the covers one after the other, and both of them are in their like poses. And I was like, they're in like the exact same pose. Wouldn't it be funny if they were father and son? Wouldn't it be funny if they were father and son? And then it was just like, it just clicked. And especially I love connecting characters. I love it. I love it when I can, like, if I could ever just get like a push pin board and just like do the string with all the way all of my books connect, like it would look like a conspiracy theory. Or
we like a good murder board.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's, and so being able to connect them like that made me really, really happy. And it meant that I could put the Outlands Club into the Stronghold Doms world. And that's where we'll be headed when I'm done with Marquis. We will be heading up to the Outlands for more, which is where my Daddy's Everywhere series is also set. All my Daddy Dom series of novellas is in the Outlands. So
what is next?
So What book is next?
Mhm.
So I just finished writing Leo, which is a Masters of the Zodiac book, which is a multi-author series. We each took a zodiac sign, and it's a alternate reality, shall we say, where they give the astrology report along with the meteorology report, like with the weather report. So everyone knows what their signs are. Some people are more believers than others. Some people do have kind of like paranormal powers, but then you also get the grifters and the scammers who pretend to have them. So like a lot of people are still skeptical. And but each of the books follows the guild master for the zodiac sign. I am a Leo, so I was like, I have to write Leo. um it it might be one of my favorite books I've ever written. Like it was just supposed to be this like goofy side project that I wanted to do with my friends. And as I'm writing the book, I'm like, you guys, this book is so ridiculous in the best way possible. Like, first of all, I named the main character after one of my husband's D&D characters. He had this D&D character named Chadwick Flexington, which is apparently the name of a pro wrestler, so I couldn't give him the full name, but I named him Chadwick. And my husband's D&D character started out as this like lawful, neutral, kind of snobby noble that was like just trying to go around making everybody like follow the rules basically, and he just like by the end of the campaign had turned into this complete himbo. And so I have Chadwick, and his last name's Cummings. Chadwick Cummings. He does the daily zodiac, the daily astrology report for the main news station. His tagline for it is, "This is Chadwick Cummings coming into your living room with your daily zodiac, or with your daily astrology report." And he's just so cheesy and ridiculous. And his heroine is his new bodyguard that he had to hire, and she loathes him. Like, just cannot stand his smarmy ass.
Oh my god. How
Sounds
cheesy.
awesome.
It sounds so great. Like, I love a himbo. I do like a good
Oh,
himbo.
When is
yeah.
this
And
out?
he's,
When do we get
that's
this?
how he appears. He's deeper than that. He's not actually like he's the a lot of a lot of the messaging in the book is about the fact that like the way that he appears is not necessarily the way he is, and that like he's a celebrity, he's very popular, he's also very lonely. He doesn't have a lot of people he can actually trust. Um and so as she gets to know the real him, they go from being like, I hate this guy, to falling for him. Um, but in the meantime, she's like hating on him, but also having these like sex nightmares. Like, it's like hot sex, but every time he comes, he's like, "I'm Chadwick Cummins, coming in your mouth." Like,
Oh,
and then she wakes up and is like, "Not again."
Oh my gosh. Now, when does this come out?
So this doesn't come out until July, so we've got a little bit of a wait. But I know I had to finish it, or I had to finish it now because my schedule's so packed. So like I'm writing that, and then the next thing that I'm starting next week is it's a secret project that I can't tell you about yet, that comes out in the fall for an anthology, and that'll be a Sinistray book. And then after that, I actually don't know if I'm allowed. It's probably I'm writing a blacklight book. It's probably fine. It's probably fine that I say that. I'm writing a blacklight book, also a Sinistray. They
Okay,
haven't
explain to
announced
us,
it.
what is a blacklight book?
Oh, sorry. So Blacklight
Tell
is a
us.
BDSM club series. It was created by Livia Grant and Jennifer Benet, who are fabulous authors. And it is a multi-author club series. And it was one that I read before I like started interacting as an author on Facebook and stuff. And it was always one of my dreams to write for them. So I've written a book for them as Golden Angel. I've written in now 3 of their Valentine's Day roulette story anthologies they do. The most recent one, the finale, just came out in February, so last month, and it's the final roulette night. Roulette night's cool because it's always multi-author. It's anthology, and The basic premise is that the people who are participating in roulette night come, they randomly get assigned, they pull a popsicle stick to find out who they're paired with, and then they spin a roulette wheel to find out what kind of scene they're doing. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. And if you don't feel like reading the whole series, just go read the roulette nights because they're so good.
There are 35 books in this series. Am I on Amazon?
They are in Kindle Unlimited, which helps the wallet.
Yeah.
But yeah.
How many are you downloading now, Heather?
I love. Yeah. I found a lot of BDSM authors I love just through reading that series. It's a great lineup. So yeah, so I'll be writing that, and then what do I have after that? And then after that, I'm writing Garden Daddy for the fall Dirty Daddies anthology, and then I'll be writing Shallow Submission. And
which
then
is
after
Morgan's
that,
book.
I'll be writing my only historical romance for the year because I had so many other side projects that I was doing. A Season for Bliss, which will be out before the end of the year.
I love the Dirty Daddies anthology.
Me too.
I always pre-order that real quick when I see it.
Yeah. Are you getting the spring one that's coming out at the end of this month?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Heather,
Daddy's spring anthology. So let me tell you a fun story about the Dirty Daddy spring anthology. So I don't know if you've noticed, but I always write really tight, daddy doms with really ridiculous titles for these. The first year I did Chef Daddy. I wasn't too ridiculous yet. And then I told Ray that the organizer, I told her I wanted to write Foosball Daddies for the next one.
Yep.
And she's like, whatever, Angel. And I was like, no, I'm serious. I'm writing Foosball Daddies. She's like, whatever. So then I turned in Foosball Daddies, and she's like, okay, I did not think you were serious. I was like, I told you this is what I was doing. She's like, only you would do this to me. And I was like, so then, I'm part of the Dirty Daddies admin team. So I'm in the group chat, and I told everyone this year, last year for the fall one, I wrote Taco Daddy. And someone said, do you just where do you get these names from? And I was like, oh, I have a list. I started making a list of increasingly ridiculous daddy dom titles, which I'm just going to keep telling Ray, I'm going to pick a new one every time until Ray either tells me no or her head explodes.
This one is a good one.
Right. And they were like, wait, can we see the list? And I was like, I mean, I guess. So I was like, I kind of want Ray they're like, no, we'll make a whole anthology around the list. Can we just show us the list and we'll each choose a title from it and we'll make a whole anthology based on this list of titles. And I was like, okay, I can do that. So I shared the list with them, and that's what the Spring Daddies is. Spring Daddies there's one or two titles that other authors came up with that they wanted to write that fit in well, but 95% of the titles in the spring anthology are the ridiculous titles that I came up with to pitch to Ray that the other authors decided they wanted to write. And now I have a new list. So
this is so funny. What is the spring one?
So it's called the Dirty Daddies Spring Anthology.
Yep.
I'll be writing Cheese Daddy for it. There's also, I believe, Sparkle Daddy, Belt Daddy, 1-800 Daddy, Virgin Daddy. I think there's
Prepper Daddy, Curling Daddy.
Yes, Curling Daddy. That was one of my favorites.
Candy Daddy.
This is fantastic.
And I did pre-order it, so yes.
Yeah.
Heather's pretty quick on the pre-orders.
Yeah, I had so much. So Cheese Daddy. First, in Taco Daddy, I introduced a guy with a daddy dom with a taco truck. The taco truck next to him is a gourmet grilled cheese truck owned by one of his friends who's also a daddy dom. And Owen's gourmet grilled cheese truck is called A Touch of Brie. And his heroine's name is Bree, Bree. Because I'm sick like that. And then, yeah, so later this year for the fall anthology, I'll be writing Garden Daddy, who owns the plant nursery behind the two trucks and is also friends with the two food truck owners. And his heroine's name is Eden. Taco Daddy, we only know his heroine by her nickname, which is Rita, but her full name is Margarita.
Oh my God.
This is what I do to amuse myself.
I think this is fantastic.
Hilarious.
Okay, so Legally Bound is available now wherever you guys buy books. It is a femme-dom romance. It is Freddie and Mistress Camille. I think that it is the perfect amount of steam, kink, and emotion in this book, and I highly recommend everyone go out and grab it. Make sure you have signed up for Golden Angel's newsletter, follow her on BookBub, follow her on Amazon, and make sure you are following her over on TikTok. She does a really great series called Author Tips for Authors, which is really insightful for also readers, you know, to kind of see different ways that we can be supporting authors also. Golden Angel, thank you so much for joining us on this Friday night to celebrate your release.
Yeah, I always have fun chatting with you guys.
We love having you anytime. We'll be back in 2 weeks with author Delta James to she's like celebrating like 120 books or something that she's releasing.
Yeah, she's a machine.
She is a machine.
Yeah.
She's always a delightful guest, and we haven't talked to her in about a year, so she is coming back to hang out with us in a couple weeks. So,
yep, she's another chatty one.
I adore her. I adore her. She was
so
so excited to come on a happy hour, but their internet was having problems, so she and Chris drove to the local Dairy Queen and sat in the parking lot of their car to do a happy hour with us from the Dairy Queen parking lot.
She's amazing.
She's the best.
Yeah, she has the best stories. Like, she just has the best stories.
She's so fun.
She does.
Anyway, you can find us on all of your podcast apps for our latest episodes. This week we are dropping Duchess Katie and Leah and I talk our hot takes on all the current hubbub going on in the book world. And then next week, a week from Sunday, we have our Mafia Trope Talk episode coming out where we're going to give you all the anti-hero Mafia recs. So you can find that wherever you get podcasts. Thank you once again for joining us.
For having me.
Until next time, everyone. Happy reading.
Bye.